Right, so I'm going to do the next bit in the airbrushing of a body shell series, and this is the point where I'm going to mark up the design of the body shell on the external part. So in the previous one we put the liquid mask on the inside. On this one here I'm going to put the design of this body shell on here. So I've changed from the body shell that I was doing previously to this one, because this one's going to have a simpler design on it, so it'll be better for the purpose of doing this. And all that I've got to be able to do this is I've got these permanent marker pens. Says they've got 0.4mm tip on it, which I quite like because it's just quite a fine line, because I always do pinstriping. And I've got this lining tape. Again, I think this is like 4mm thick lining tape, this one. It's one of the thinner ones that they do anyway. And that's it. So let's get started. When I first started doing shells, I used to be quite passionate about how equal the lines were when I stenciled them out here with the pen. But you learn over time that it's not actually that important, because when you take the knife to the shell and you're doing it, it's really hard, one, to stay equal all the way through it as you go down the line. And when people are looking at the shell, they don't notice the imperfections like what you will do as the creator, because they're not studying it all. So I wouldn't worry about it. So there you can see that it's all wonky with me, and it's like not even as it goes along, because it's not a straight edge there anyway. But I assure you it'll be good enough when we actually do the cutting out. The other bit that I forgot to mention at the start is that you need an earbud, some white spirit and just some paper towel, and this is just for if you make any mistakes. So on here, like when I've just done this bit here, if it was going to get complicated around where that red line is going to be, which it's not actually on this occasion, I get some white spirit on it just to remove it, but you don't want to go crazy with it, else it's going to make it difficult for the next colours that go on there. So literally just dab that into that and then just rub it on there and it'll come straight off. It's just because it's permanent ink, so you just need something a bit more abrasive than spit or water on there. And then I normally just get a bit of spit on the paper towel there and then just wipe the shell off where I've just had the white spirit, just to make sure that there's no white spirit on there, so that when you're drawing back on it, it will adhere to it. So so far we've got this much of the design done, and that's probably going to be as complicated as it gets to that. The idea so far is that everything inside these lines is going to be white, and then I'm going to have some blue. It's going to be red at the back, and it's going to have some blue coming up here and some blue coming up here. So that the design in my head is that it's just split. So you've got white, blue, red, white, and by splitting, it's hard to explain, but by splitting those up, I just think it will look right. So I don't know, time will tell, but we shall do the blue bit now. So we're doing half a shell at a time. So I'm going to do the blue bit of the shell now, and then once I'm happy with all of this half, then I shall copy that over onto this half here. and it's easier when you do this bit because you can just take measurements to make sure that both sides are equal. But let's get going. The other thing that I forgot to say is a lot of the time when I'm marking out these shells, I will quite often follow the contours of the shells rather than trying to fight against them, because I've just found that when you come to the inside, say if I've got it going over these bumps and this, that and the other, that your knife comes and then it just skews off and you're just like, oh, it's just an absolute nightmare. So rather than, I'd ideally like that line to be going completely straight down the shell, but because there's a bit of a contour in the shell, I'm just going to follow the lines a bit, and then that will just make it easier for when I'm coming to do the knife. You'll probably notice as well that when I'm doing the pinstriping here, it isn't the thickness of this tape. Again, you have to kind of be a bit relevant to the size of the shell that you're working on. So this has got obscure lines on it, so this line here is thicker than this line here, which is just an effect. It normally works quite well. I might use that up there actually and change the thickness of that line up there. But if I was doing an 1/8 shell, a 1/8 on-road body shell, I would generally do my pinstripe in the thickness of this tape, but because this is just a small 1/10 buggy shell, I will keep the thickness of it to probably like half of this tape, because it will just look better. It will just look, it won't look right if you keep it to the thickness of this tape anyway, if you did the majority of the pinstriping in it. Right, so that's this design done now, I think. I was contemplating, so what I ended up doing on the side, because I ended up too close to the cut line, I had to go back on my idea. So what I've done is so this bit here will be blue that's running in here. So I brought these kind of like daggers over into what the area that will be white here. So this is going to have like a chrome or a silver line in here, so this will come over this black and into this white here, which I think will look quite true. This is going to have a black pinstripe with white in here. This is all going to be white coming up into here with black pinstripe, and then I'm going to do a blue bit on here with it like separated. So this is all going to be red, fluorescent red at the back here. So it's going to be, this is going to have a break between the white and the blue here. So this is where the white and the blue are connected, like side by side. This is going to go white, red, blue. And this can be quite a powerful effect to do, just putting a space between the colours. It just makes them feel, I don't know what the right word is, but it just works as a really good effect. And I was contemplating doing the same down here at the front, so like flipping this over here and having a blue bit that comes up here with a space for the red, and then the white just kind of floating there by itself. That's probably the word that I'm looking for. It kind of gives that floating effect of the paintwork in the body shell. So it's not just all patch work. It's kind of, that's an element on its own. The red's an element on its own, and then the white's an element on its own. So it gives it that kind of floating effect. But this bit on the front, I've just decided not to do it because I can't be bothered really more than anything. And they'll probably put a sticker here or something anyway on the white that will break it up. So yeah, it's all done. It should look fine as far as like a buggy shell goes. So what I'm going to do now is just replicate this on the other side, and then we'll start knifing it up and get some paint on it. Right, so that's the design completed on the shell. It took about an hour to do that, so not too bad. But you could probably imagine if you're doing like an 8th shell, which is much bigger, it's probably going to be longer doing it than what that was. So next thing we'll move on to is, the other thing that I wanted to say is, as I was like marking this out, I was using like my fingers to line up like where these things, because I tend to have symmetrical shells. You can do unsymmetrical shells, which is probably beneficial because differences wouldn't show up so much, but I guess I'm a bit OCD like that and I like a symmetrical shell. So when I was doing things like this, lining it up here and then marking the tape, when there was like contours in the body shell where that's got like a corner, I could see that like this was where this point hit on the body shell. So it was using them as like references as I was remarking things out on this side. So yeah, nothing ever ends up 100% like for like from one side to the other, but honestly I just wouldn't worry about it. It will be fine in the end. Yeah, so the next thing we're going to move on to is knife work. Cheers.